Okay, now I want to move on to O-scale modeling. And first, I want to show the video for the O-scale Central organization.
I'm David Vaughn of O-Scale Central. O-Scale 2-Rail, models built to 1 to 48 scale and running on 2-rail track, is the best kept secret in model railroading. We're pleased to team with Jim Kello to introduce O-Scale 2-Rail to New Track's viewers. O-Scale 2-Rail is for modelers. At twice the scale and 8 times the mass of HO, O-Scale's heft and ease of modeling create an outstanding model railroading experience. O-Scale 2-Rail modeling is as varied as railroading itself. Modern era, transition or old time, standard gauge or narrow. A wide variety of models is available at affordable prices. There is a supportive community and lots of shows, clubs, and events. You can explore O-Scale 2-Rail by going to our website, oscalecentral.com. You will find information about the scale and how to get started, as well as a free, searchable, scale-wide product and service guide and listings of coming O-Scale events. You will also find information about how to join O-Scale Central. We promote O-Scale 2-Rail and support modelers in the scale. When your eyes are going bifocular, when you need fresh challenges, keep O-Scale 2-Rail in mind. Check us out, oscalecentral.com. Thanks.
And I also asked David if he'd like to make a few comments personally about this organization, since he is the president of the organization. And I don't think he mentioned one thing that I personally get a lot of enjoyment out of, and it's their once a month Zoom show. And if you've never been on it before and you're an O-scaler or interested in O-scale 2-rail, I'd encourage you to talk to David and get on their list because it's a lot of fun and you'll learn a lot. David, welcome.
Thank you. A quick minute. I know you've got a lot of things on the program, Jim. We really appreciate the support that you give to every part of the hobby, but in particular to O-Scale 2-Rail. Uh, I want to just correct one thing in that video. We keep saying that O-Scale 2-Rail is the best kept secret, and we've got both model railroader and railroad model craftsman blowing our cover because the February issue of Model Railroader has as its cover layout story an O-Scale 2-Rail layout by Ed Rapé, and the January issue of Railroad Model Craftsman has John Sethian's layout. They are spectacular layouts, even if you don't usually look at Model Railroader and Railroad Model Craftsman. These are worth a look. So take a look. And I would emphasize that our website, oscalecentral.com, will have links to get you on the online program that we do on a monthly basis. I got a special little treat for Jim Kello. I know that Jim is a traction guy, and O-Scale Central has not had a traction guy in our leadership, and so we haven't done very well at getting traction vendors listed. But we have Ed Shukas will be coming on board as an advisor, and he has assured me that he's going to make traction front and center for 2-Rail O-Scale. One more plug, and that is that the Chicago March meet, March 14 through 17 in Lombard, Illinois, is coming up. It's the mother church for O-Scale 2-Rail, and if you have any curiosity about it, you should take a trip out to Lombard, Illinois. It is, I think, marchmeet.com. Yeah, I'm sorry, marchmeet.net. And if you go there, you can learn all about how to get plugged in. But there are exciting things happening in O-Scale. One more plug, I forgot this. 3D printing is the best thing that ever happened to O-Scale 2-Rail, and we think it's going to revolutionize the scale. We've got a small but devoted cadre, and we will now be able to develop products without the kind of expensive upfront tooling, without the expensive minimum runs, and without the expensive carrying inventory. So we have people in O-Scale 2-Rail that are just incredibly excited about the direction that the scale is going. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate your time. And thanks to David Schultz, who's been showing the flag for O-Scale 2-Rail on New Tracks for a while.
David, if you'll ask Ed Shuka to get in touch with me, I'd love to get him scheduled for be a guest on the show to talk about traction and what he's planning to do for O-Scale.
Happy to do that. We'll talk later. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you so much, David, for being here tonight. Well, now I want to turn to David Schultz as the host for O-Scale Central's O-Scale 2-Rail modeling. David, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. It gets a little confusing with all the Davids in the O-Scale world.
I send emails to the wrong person all the
time. Well, tonight we're going to talk about the cost of O-Scale because one of the things I hear a lot of is that I can't afford to be in O-Scale, and that was kind of, I've always been in O-Scale. I started off in Lionel, and I had kind of that thing I couldn't afford. I'd look at these brass models, and of course, back in the 80s, we're talking $300. Now we're talking thousands. But anyway, I met a guy in Fargo, North Dakota named Bill Flint, and he was kind of a master at taking bits and pieces of almost anything and turning them into beautiful O-Scale models. And I was absolutely blown away by this. And at the time, of course, to me, O-Scale was Lionel. Well, I'm looking at the stuff Bill had built, and of course, it's larger, it's longer, it's so I bought my first O-Scale model, and Bill kind of took me by the hand and showed me how to scratch build, which I'd never done before. I always had kind of an inkling that I could build better stuff out of my Lionel collection by adding parts or whatever. But Bill showed me, and he was the master of taking a 2x4 and saying, now you just carve away everything that doesn't look like a caboose. And he could do stuff like that, and it was phenomenal. And I always make the comment, Bill was always looking for places and pieces anywhere. And I always said he could go into a beauty salon and come out with 2 items that would work in O-Scale for something or other. He showed me pieces out of Bic lighters that can be used for tank cars and for buildings. And so it was amazing. But I have a 11-minute video that I made, and I wanted Bill to trim it down a little bit, but he has so much stuff that he has built, and he's proud of every piece of it. He's won contests. He's won an NMRA contest with this stuff. And so I guess without further ado, I'll let the video do the talking. Like I say, it goes rather fast because Bill's just has so much, and he just couldn't narrow it down. So I just let him go. But anyway, Mr. Rivard, if you have that video available, if you'd start that for me, I'd appreciate it. That is the wrong one. That one's only about a minute long. It's the 11-minute one. That's the one.
Lift off.
David, is this P48?
No, this is regular OW5. 5.
Got it.
But keep in mind, every one of those cars started off as a Mark's car, Lionel, or a Shield.
Unbelievable.
Hi, I'm Bill from North Dakota, one of North Dakota's few O-scalers. I think there may be two, maybe three others, but I've been doing this since 1961, and I started out converting Lionel stuff to two-rail scale. This whole train represents most of the conversions that I've done over the years, and if you'd like to take a look at them, we'll back it up and go by car, we'll run by it. This is a little Sioux-line caboose, which is dimensionally accurate, built from Kusan plastic models and scale trucks. This is a scale gondola I built out of Strathmore in 1965. This is a remnants of two Lionel depressed center flat cars, which I kit bashed. It's kind of a sniglet, no prototype, but this is a Lionel gondola conversion of a EJ&E prototype. This is a Santa Fe Lionel conversion. Santa Fe prototype built out of Lionel barrel cars. Kusan, basically a high rail car, but it just put scale trucks and couplers on it, jack decals. And the ubiquitous Walthers beer can tank car, built without a beer can, but I used PVC pipe instead. The Deep Rock tank is built from Lionel two-dome tank cars, lengthened, and again, shaft decals. Shell tank car, also a Lionel conversion, lengthened and had the dome raised. That's a Lionel conversion. The composite gun is a scratch-built car from 1965. And the Pennsy and Erie gondolas are both built from Mark's drop-in gondola kits, which I lengthened and widened with the inside. Two flat cars, the one with the light deck, that's made from Kusan plastic flat cars. And the other flat car right by the engine, my first conversion, done in 1961, from two Lionel three-rail flat cars. And to top it all off, the Fairbanks North H1644 is done from a Lionel Trainmaster shell, highly modified for length, width, and put a scale drive in it with Japanese, Canon coreless motor, and ball bearings and flywheels and KDs, and of course champ decals. And that's one of my Lionel. I also think we've coupled to a couple of standing engines, and we're not going to drag the lead sleds around. Here's some more Lionel conversions. This is a Lionel Jeep 7 with a modified cab and short hood and red caboose details on it. But it's all done with junker parts from Lionel, leftover parts from other engines. This is off a Lionel Jeep, scaled down. So the dimensions are all correct. And then I added a few extra features. It has an operating Mars light. And I build most of my engines with removable access for electronics. And it kind of freaks people out when the lights on the engine still work, even when the power's turned off, because of good old reliable AA batteries from the thrift store. Another conversion is a Bachmann, done from a couple of Bachmann ON3 cars. I widened it, lengthened it, put some decent looking trucks on it, and built an underframe. And it's a nice little, it's not perfectly to scale, and it's not any particular prototype, but it's an interesting looking car. It works nice with a little AHM 440, or a Casey Jones 10-wheeler. Another Lionel conversion. This is done from a Lionel General set from 1959. This was a postal car, and it had 6 windows in the door, 6 windows in the door, and 3. I converted it to make it a combine, baggage combine caboose, with a cupola off an Atlas 4-wheel bobber. And so that's about the extent of my Lionel conversions. I also convert other things. This is an Ertl truck. It's a model of a truck I drove when I was in college in summer of 1966. This was an Ertl semi-tractor. It's a 1948 Diamond T truck, and I worked for a guy hauling LCL freight to the Great Northern and Northern Pacific freight houses in the summer of 1966. And I scratch built a box for it, but it's kind of an interesting model that of something that I drove as a young man. And nights that the Ertl people did the model, they did a very nice job on it. And so a personal history touch to my railroad. Any questions so far?
Well, what kind of money have you got tied up in this?
Well, the conversions are done out of the scrap box, and used Lionel stuff and used Kusan stuff, and I have a Kusan collection, and the duplicates or the damaged stuff wound up in the scrap box, which I use to source my projects. I have a tub of stuff. This is all leftovers and some projects yet to be built, but the results, the leftovers from all the conversions I've done. But the money involved is not substantial. I mean, it'd be nice to be able to buy all of it in brass, but on a retired person's income, that's, and even now as a retired person, the time is not as available as it used to be. But I still find time to do this stuff, and I like to, it gives me a historic perspective on where I was in the hobby at certain times, and where my skill level has developed. And sometimes I go back and find a project I did a long time ago and go, this just isn't going to cut it. So I take it apart and redo it and upgrade it, and so consequently I don't have a finished railroad. I've got a lot of freight cars, a lot of passenger cars, a lot of locomotives, most of which came out of the junk box or modified, cheap Atlas stuff, AHM engines, and I do have some AHM 10-wheelers and the 080 and 440 and an all-nation 10-wheeler. But mostly I build models that are commercially cheap, and sometimes I build models that I'm not even particularly interested in, but if they were so reasonable in price I couldn't pass it up, then I'd snap them up and build them, and then eventually they wind up on the sale table at the O-Scale meet in Chicago in March every year. And occasionally, if it's a model that's not particularly popular, we do a technique which we refer to in North Dakota train circles as Norwegian shoplifting, which consists of taking an undesirable object or something that doesn't sell and it just had been annoying to be in your inventory, and you walk over to someone's table at a meet and you examine something and surreptitiously leave your Norwegian shoplifting item on the table and then quietly walk away. And it's relatively harmless. It does cause a little consternation about people when they go to pack up their stuff after the show going, I don't remember where this came from.
That is my buddy Bill. He is an interesting character. The one thing he taught me, though, is when you start scratch building things, it gets into your blood and it's hard to give up. I still prefer to scratch build things over buying kits, but sometimes kits are the way to go. And when you start finding kits at like the Chicago show, like Bill mentioned, I just bought a what do they call those? Like an 85-foot automobile parts car. Quality Craft made it years ago, and the guy had $5 on it. Well, for heaven's sakes, you got to pick that up. But anyway, this show is part one of two parts. I've got another segment about 5 minutes long next month. I'll show of some of Bill's locomotives and other passenger cars and such that he has scratch built over time. But once again, he's got very little money tied up in this stuff, and yet he has won contests. He won an NMRA contest with a Bud RDC car that he built from a Lionel, and it's something to be seen. To take a car that I think scales out at 43 feet in Lionel. He took two of them, and I forget how many cuts he's got in this thing, but he glued all the parts back together, and he made a very, very, very interesting RDC3. And so anyway, that's what I've got for tonight. We will continue this next month. but yeah, the Norwegian shoplifting, I got a kick out of that. And he's done that where he's gone around to tables and he'll leave something on somebody's table and walk away. So,
David, that was great. That really was. And it just show you can be an O-scale modeler without breaking the bank.
you can, and next month, we'll show you some drives that he built using HO models. He'd buy up old train masters, I think it was, and he'll take the trucks and convert them to use them for the drives for the Bud cars. Just amazing how he does some of this stuff. So yeah, he can O-scale on a budget. There's no doubt about it. He always said that he had time, he had money, he didn't.
Yep. Anybody have any questions for David?
Yes, David, it's Pat here.
Yes.
Yeah, on the locomotives, he was running, was it battery powered for just the lights or for the whole thing?
No, it was just for the lights. He's not a DCC guy. Can't, doesn't really want to spend the money on that kind of. So it's standard analog DC on the locomotives, but he likes having the lights on bright to not go and dim as you turn the power down. So he runs all his lights on little battery packs that he buys at oh gosh, that one time he bought power packs from Polaroid film canisters. And they're little rechargeable gel batteries. And he's got some of those, got to be 20 years old, and they're still working. So yeah, Bill, he does his battery power. He'll, all flashing beacons, ditch lights, all that stuff is all battery powered. But the locomotive. So, and I got to tell you, these new iPhones, man, they got a microphone on them, because you'd swear that H16 ran horribly, and it actually isn't that loud. But that phone sure makes it sound loud.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much, David. See you next
You're
time.
welcome.